Alright, welcome back to my channel. Yes, today is Thursday and we love Thursday. And don't forget to give Critical Drinker a follow. But let's start off with greetings. Hello, my name is Daniel. I will host your
guy in the chair.
He said it! He said it!
And of course, it's Critical Drinker Day, where we hear his thoughts on why the Last of Us Season 2 might be bad. But let's enjoy. Oh,
The past
and
few years have
TikTok
seen the
shop.
dawn of a
Enjoy.
new era for video game adaptations. Yeah, they've definitely been attempted before, with varying degrees of success, but it's only in the past 5 years or so that Hollywood has seen the true potential of stuff like this and decided to exploit it. And who could blame them, really? The amount of money being made by the video game industry absolutely dwarfs what Tinseltown manages to bring in each year. The budgets for AAA games make a mockery of even the most bloated of blockbusters, which is kind of creating its own set of problems, but that's a topic for another video. The point is, I can totally understand why the fine people of Hollywood want to jump on this particular bandwagon. It allows you to exploit a vast back catalogue of pre-existing characters and storylines without going through the difficult process of coming up with original ideas. There's a huge built-in audience that should, in theory, be super hyped for your product, and you could even tie your big movie release into the game with special downloadable content, creating some weird Ouroboros of entertainment. Anyway, so far the results have ranged from good to bad to ugly to downright baffling. But one of the big success stories in this confusing patchwork was The Last of Us, based off the best-selling video game series by Naughty Dog. I mean, as far as source material goes, The Last of Us was kind of a no-brainer, really. The game was as close to being a movie as the John Wick films were to being video games, and so it lent itself pretty naturally to a TV adaptation. Yeah, it might not have been perfect, it definitely dragged badly in places, the two main characters weren't as well developed or likeable as in the game, the casting was questionable at best, and for a post-apocalyptic zombie survival show, there was a distinct lack of zombies towards the end, but overall, I think people were fairly happy with it. But there was a problem looming on the horizon, dear viewer, and that problem came in the shape of Season 2. Oh man! Oh god, oh man! See, much like Season 1 took its inspiration from the first game in the franchise, Season 2 was going to have to draw on its sequel to carry on the story. And well, there's no getting around this one. The Last of Us Part 2 was a bit of a fucking pig. No matter how many slobbering games journalists fell over themselves to fillet Neil Druckmann's throbbing shaft, and no matter how many meaningless industry awards it got showered with, the fact remains that The Last of Us Part 2 was, at best, one of the most divisive and damaging games in the history of the medium. Whether it was the brutal and mean-spirited execution of beloved characters...
Finish him! Fatality.
The retconning of past events to demonize people who made completely understandable choices at the time, the insufferable girl bosses who could do anything, beat up guys twice their size and don't take no shit from no man.
What you got there?
Bacon sandwiches.
Ellie's gay, by the way, or whatever the hell this ridiculous slab of beef was supposed to be. It all added up to a game that left a sour taste in people's mouths, that felt like it was made by a completely different creative team with completely different objectives in mind, and that trampled all over the legacy of its predecessor to achieve it. It was basically the gaming equivalent of The Last Jedi, and it had a similar effect on the fan base. The upshot of all of this is that HBO now find themselves in a bit of a no-win situation with Season 2, where any course of action is going to end up alienating a good chunk of their audience. If they deviate from the plot of the game and change key events in response to audience backlash, it's going to massively piss off fans of Part 2. And yes, apparently such people do exist. Then again, there's also people who find fat girls attractive. It makes no sense to me, but each to their own, I guess. On the other hand, if they stick closely to the plot of the game, which is what they did with Season 1, then it's going to piss off basically everyone else. And here's the thing, if I had to make a prediction here, I'd say they're probably going to take the second option. Yeah, it flies in the face of logic, common sense, and basic human decency, but when Neil Druckmann is your showrunner, you don't need to worry about stuff like that. See, Last of Us Part 2 was very much Neil Druckmann's baby, his magnum opus, and changing key parts of it for the TV adaptation would be an admission of defeat. and his ego just won't allow for that. In fact, to cement this idea, he even brought in Hallie Gross, the co-writer for the game, to work on this season, which should really tell you everything you need to know about where this show's heading creatively. It's going to do what the game did and probably double down on it. While I'm here, there's a few other concerns that I might as well mention now because I think they're going to factor into the show's overall reception. The first of which is the casting. Yeah, we all meme on Pedro Pascal for showing up in basically everything these days, and while I'm sure he'll turn in the same reliably acceptable performance that he brings to every one of the 500 or so projects he shows up in every year, you're never going to get me to concede that he was the right guy to play Joel, just like he wasn't the right guy to play General Acacius in Gladiator 2. Yeah, he was perfectly fine in the role, I guess, because he's a good enough actor to make most characters work to some degree, but you could tell that it didn't really fit with his sensibilities as a performer. I get the impression that he's actually a bit of a sensitive soul in real life, probably more inclined towards flawed and vulnerable characters with a lot of emotional expression, wearing nice fluffy jumpers and doing bouncy showbiz interviews, but for some reason Hollywood keeps trying to market him as a rugged, grizzled tough guy, like he's the next Charles Bronson or Clint Eastwood or something, and it all feels about as authentic as Zendaya's career. All of this is to say that I don't think he was the right choice to play Joel. I don't especially like what he did with the character in season 1, and I don't expect it's going to get any better in season 2. But okay, fine, I guess that's a problem that'll solve itself eventually. The bigger issue is Ellie. Let's be real with ourselves, gentlemen. I think pretty much everyone agrees that Bella Ramsey was a bad choice to play this character. Like, I don't want to shit on someone's appearance, but the job of any actor is to physically and emotionally embody the character that they're playing. And be honest here, out of all the teenage actresses who would have jumped at the chance to play Ellie, are you seriously telling me this was the best they could come up with? Season 2 is also supposed to take place 5 years after the events of the first season, with a much more grown-up Ellie taking on the lead role in the narrative. The problem is that Bella Ramsey somehow still has the face and build of a 12-year-old girl, even though she's like 21 now, so I've got no idea how they expect to make that one work. Especially the action scenes where she has to come across as a dangerous fighter who'd rip your throat out if you messed with her. Jesus, at least teach her how to throw a punch. Appearances aside though, this season's also going to need her to do a lot of heavy lifting from an acting point of view, and honestly, I don't really think she has the range or the charisma to pull it off. She could manage a kind of smarmy, prickly aggressiveness, but that's basically the only thing I got from her in season 1. Ellie's unique combination of plucky bravery, fake bravado, childish innocence, and emotional vulnerability from the games was replaced by a kind of sneering, arrogant overconfidence where she was able to verbally spar with adults far older and more experienced than herself that made it pretty hard to like or even care about her after a while. And honestly, I don't know how they expect to get over that. The casting of Abby was always going to be a point of contention too, and to be fair, they've at least found an actress who looks like an actual human female this time around instead of whatever the fuck this was supposed to be. Seriously though, Caitlin Dever is a pretty good actress, and if you haven't watched her in Dopesick, then I can definitely recommend that show. If you don't already hate the pharmaceutical industry with every fibre of your being, then you definitely will after that. Anyway, the downside though is that the role of Abby is kind of a poisoned chalice, and I think she's going to come in for a lot of criticism no matter how well she plays it. I don't like it, but that's the hostile environment that the game created. Now, this last one is purely one of those gut instinct things, but I get the feeling that season 2 is going to go all in on the message. We already know that stuff like that is close to Neil Druckmann's heart, and he certainly injected every ounce of it into the second game. But while season 1 generally managed to avoid being too overt with its political messaging, you could always kind of feel it there lurking in the backgrounds.
So, communism. Nah, they ain't like that.
It is that, literally. This is a commune. We're communists.
But the showrunners knew they had to win people over with that all-important first season, otherwise there wouldn't be any more, and so they were smart enough to keep it dialed down to some degree. But now that they've gotten over that initial hurdle, well, I'd expect to see it fully unleashed with season 2. Remember Westworld, anyone? Remember how that show fell off a cliff after an incredible first season and basically devolved into a tedious female empowerment wankfest? Well, there's your patient zero right there. Ultimately, we're not going to know for sure until season 2 releases, and it might still turn out to be an amazing product that somehow pleases both sides of the heavily divided fan base. But if I were you, I would go into this one with a healthy dose of skepticism. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Hey guys, I hope y'all like what I had to say, and I do fear for season 2. At the beginning, it'll be The Last of Us Part 2 all over again. And we don't even want to begin to get into that controversy. I mean, we say bye bye, Joel. Spoiler, but if you have played the game, you know. If you play, you definitely know. If you haven't, you don't know, and that's a good thing. We'll see how they do in season 2, if they retcon or not. We'll find out. But this is where I like, comment, share, subscribe. But I say, I hope you had a wonderful night and the rest of the day goes really well. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.